Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Hello, and thank you for tuning into the GSMC Relationship Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, and I am your host, Giovanna. How is everyone doing today? It is busy day for me, but I'm recording this with my coffee, and I'm ready to get started with you all today because I am really excited about some of today's segments. For the first two segments, we're going to be talking about love bombing. I didn't know what love bombing was until like 2 weeks ago, and it started popping up on some of my social media pages and things like that. So we're going to be talking about what love bombing is, and also some different types of love bombers. So let's get right into it. I used a couple different sources for this episode. I have a article from Psychology Today, and I also used, this, gonna sound strange, but on TikTok there's a lot of psychologists who create very informative TikTok videos. And if you don't know what TikTok is, it's basically just like a short little video. But yeah, there was one TikToker who I really, she came across my feed, and she broke down some different types of relationship bombers. So for starters, here are some red flags that may come up in a relationship if to see if you're being love bombed. So this is 11 red flags. 1, if something is moving too fast. 2, if something feels too personal too quickly. 3, if someone labels you as their boyfriend, girlfriend after only a few dates. If someone acts needy and makes demands of your time right from the get-go. If communication contains demands. If someone often wants to rephrase what they said to change your responses. If someone wants to be rescued. If someone refuses any blame for the failing of any of their previous relationships. If someone suddenly loves everything you love. If someone has an entirely different personality depending on the people around them. If someone's attitude, behaviors, beliefs, or humor is not consistent. So basically what love bombing is, so those are some red flags, but what it actually is, someone gives you, an extreme amount of attention, an extreme amount of, like sweet nothings. They give you gifts. They show someone like shows up to your work with just a dozen roses unannounced. Those can be some examples of love bombing. And the thing with abnormal behavior is an abnormal behavior is normal behavior, but it disrupts your life or the lives of people around you. So if you're thinking if you're getting kind of scared right now, don't worry if, it's great if your significant other is giving you, roses and gifts and surprising you. That's fine. But it becomes abnormal if something feels off to you. And you know yourself better than anybody else. So if something seems strange, if, I'd say if around 6 or 7 of some of those red flags are coming up, like if you don't really know the person, if maybe you met them online, like an online dating site, and they're already acting like this after, a few dates, that's when I would, put some thought into what's going on. But just keep in mind that abnormal behavior is a normal behavior just times 1,000. So yeah. Anyway, so basically someone who love bombs is going to be a narcissist. And they use love bombing to try to get you into their little clasp. According to the site Psychology Today article, narcissists will use love bombing as a way to get you into their, get you as a character in their show. Because narcissists, the world revolves around them. So if they can get you into their cast, I like to think of it as a narcissist is going to be the lead actor in their life's play or journey or movie or whatever. And everyone else are just simply extras. They're just side characters. And once a narcissist can prove to you using love bombing how amazing they are and how well you guys work together, that's when they have you, basically. And it is a form of an abusive relationship. So after they get you, they get you. But you are now a part of their cast, and they can use you for coercion or manipulation. And one of the red flags that came up was they'll show up unannounced. So let's say they show up to your house or they show up to your work. This can also kind of feel like stalking, but they're taking away your time from your friends, from your family, and now because they showed up unannounced, that time is for them. And the reason why it's a big red flag if these things are happening so quickly is that narcissists need to move fast so no red flags can be detected. So they're going to move in while your guard is down, essentially, and while you think you're getting to know someone. And then once you've become attached to them, that's when, they have you. So they use flattery to flatter you into submission. And nonstop attention and, gifts daily can be appealing. But if you are the object of this type of attention from someone that you just met, like I said before, you follow your instincts. If you are experiencing this from a first date or someone very new in your life, examine that and make sure you look at it without rose-colored glasses on. If you feel uncomfortable about a situation, that's probably because the situation is abnormal. An example in the Psychology Today article that they used was trying to get a dog to come to you. Not to say if you're experiencing this, you're a dog, but it's just, the example they used, is you're going to use sweet voices and pet names to convince the dog to come towards you so you can get the dog to come home with you. So how can you tell if love bombing is what it is or if it's just simply love at first sight? Now, when you are actually falling in love with someone, the feeling is going to be mutual. It's not going to feel forced. You're not going to feel like you're being guilted into spending time with that person. you're just going to want to spend time with that person. When the person is maybe giving you gifts that are really too much money or way too extravagant, and you feel like, it might be moving too fast, or they want to spend all of their time with you to the point where you don't have time to spend with your family, your friends, or just to do things that you need to get done from work, homework, whatever it may be. So this is a sign of love bombing. If you feel that, if you feel anxious, if you feel like you're letting them down, that may be signs that you are being love bombed. And love bombers will often go after people that they think are vulnerable. So if, I don't want to bash dating websites, as I met my current boyfriend on a dating website, but if you post publicly that you're looking for someone, love bombers will see that and know that you are interested and you want to have that attention. And they're going to see that and know that if they give you an extreme amount of attention, you are going to react well to that, and you are going to be an easier target. Because the goal of a narcissist is to win and to get everything that they want for themselves. So if you're someone who they think is going to be an easy target, they're going to go after you. So I guess maybe it's going to sound terrible, but take a look, or have a friend, or maybe refigure your dating profile if you sound really desperate, for lack of a better word. You might be a good candidate for someone to possibly get love bombed. And that's just a good thing to do anyway. If you have like a Tinder or a Bumble or anything like that, have someone else look at your profile. If you are a man seeking woman or a woman seeking man or anybody, preferably have someone of the sex that you'd like to date look at the profile, and preferably someone who also has a Tinder and sees or has used a Tinder or a Bumble, and they know what they're looking at. That way you might be able to guard yourself a little bit more from, it's really a predator like this who is going to love bomb you. And another thing that you should remember is relationships should be balanced. It should be a give and take. If one person is constantly giving, or if one person is constantly taking, in the example of love bombing, this person would be constantly giving to the point where you feel suffocated. That is, that's not a good relationship. It's not a good, healthy, balanced relationship. If you want a relationship that's going to last and that's going to feel successful, the relationship has to be balanced. There are going to be times during a relationship where maybe someone needs a little bit more attention, maybe needs a little bit more help, and that's okay. People are going to go through those times in their life, but it's not going to happen after you've just met this person, because that is a big thing about love bombing, is that all of this happens so quickly. If it's unbalanced right off the bat of the relationship, it's not going to be a good relationship down the road, especially when the relationship needs to be a little bit unbalanced in the future after a solid relationship. If there comes a point where a person in a relationship needs to have a little bit more attention, if they're going through something hard in their life, if that relationship started unbalanced, it's going to be incredibly more difficult when someone in the relationship needs a little bit more attention. A majority of love bombers are probably going to be narcissists who view other people as objects of domination and views others simply as a way to get something that they need. But love bombing can also be used by lovesick individuals who just want anything in the world to have a partner. So they're going to use, if you have someone in your life that, let's say that person just, I don't like to use this phrase, but maybe the person is, you know, that you're like out of their league. They may give you a lot of gifts. They may compliment you just constantly. That is when, that could be another sign of a type of person who is going to love bomb. In the next segment, we're going to be talking about different types of love bombing because, I'm going to talk about 5 different types of love bombing. There's financial, there's spiritual, there's emotional. What I'm trying to say is that a love bomber can love bomb you in multiple different ways. But you just really have to follow your gut. What's the saying where it's like, when you fall in love, you know it? Well, when you're not falling in love and something is wrong, you're also going to know it. So I would just recommend that everyone should just follow their gut. And if something feels not right, you should examine that and see what your partner is doing that is setting off alarms in your head. Because that's going to be the best way for you to know if what's happening isn't healthy and move on from there. So we are going to have a quick sponsor break, but right after we get from the break, we're going to discuss some of the different types of love bombing.
The GSMC Sex Podcast is a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet. Download the GSMC Sex Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you can find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. We're just going to get right into it. The first type of love bombing is going to be the most common. And that being said, it's also going to be the easiest one to identify if you're being love bombed. So this type is emotional. So if you're being emotionally loved bombed, this person just believes that you are the best person that has ever walked the face of the earth. They're calling you constantly, texting you constantly, FaceTime, on multiple different communication apps, probably. It's a lot of gifts, kind of like what we discussed in the first segment. But it's because it's the most easily identifiable, and it's also the one that narcissists will go to because it is, it seems to be one of the most effective for the majority of people. Because think about it, if this person is just treating you like the most amazing thing that has ever existed, why wouldn't you like that? Now, as we discussed before, it's going to be, you won't like it when, it feels almost like stalking. But they know that especially a vulnerable person, someone who is desperate for a it wants a relationship and wants to be loved very badly, it's going to work for them. And so it's the easiest way for a love bomber, a narcissistic person, to get their claws into you. And this person is going to be extremely emotional, hence the name. So everything is probably going to be a production. They're going to experience emotions very deeply, and it's going to affect them very deeply. So hence, because of the name, emotional love bombing, think emotion. Maybe if you start to question that person's motives or question why they're doing this, they might get really emotional and, maybe turn it back on you and be like, oh, well, I didn't mean to do that. I don't know why you're taking it this way. I just love you so much, and you're just so amazing, and you're so beautiful or handsome or whatever, so they're definitely going to be very emotional people, and they're going to use everything that's in their toolbox to try to get you to stay with them, and to get you a part of their little clan, their posse, I guess. So, and also you're going to be, they're going to point out, what a good couple you guys are together, how amazing you are together. They're going to, tell you about what other people say, like, oh, everyone thinks we're so good together. Aren't we great together? It's because you're so beautiful. It's because you're so handsome. It's because this, and this, and this. So it's going to be a lot of different, they're going to be emotional, and they're going to be playing on your emotions, because people want to feel good. People want to be, appreciated. And they're going to use that against you, unfortunately. So the next type of love bombing is actually kind of interesting, especially I've heard of people who have participated in the sugar mama daddy game, and which is great if that's something that you want to do, but it can lead to this if it's an unhealthy relationship. So this is going to be financial love bombing. Financial love bombing, they're going to take care of you. They're going to pay for just extreme, like, let's say if you just mention, like, to the side, like, oh, I was thinking about going shopping. And then they're like, oh, great, get in the car. And they just buy everything. They're going to pay your bills. They're going to take you on these crazy trips. They're just going to pay for everything. And as soon, it is false. It is not, because as soon as you begin to rely on them, now you're theirs. And, because you're going to adjust the way you live, to the point where now they have you. Maybe you even move in with them because you might not have a great living situation. And now they're paying for your rent and you can't get out. And then at that point, that's when they can let their true narcissism show. So it's gonna be all well and good and great in the beginning. But as soon as they are controlling your finances, that's when the emotional abuse or maybe even physical abuse can present itself. So emotional love, not emotional love bombing. Financial love bombing is definitely something to look out for. This is one where if you've just met the person and they are just leaving you extravagant gifts. Let's say they get you a very expensive pair of shoes, very expensive jewelry. They start just giving you money. There are people who have been sugar babies where they give them money, and there are examples of healthy sugar baby, sugar daddy, mommy relationships, but it can very quickly become dangerous if you start to rely on that person's money and they know that you're relying on that person's money, because they're going to start saying things once their true selves start to come out, like, oh, well, you wouldn't be able to afford anything without me. Like, you can't move out. Like, how are you going to afford rent? How are you going to afford all the things you like to buy? How without me, how are you going to go to your favorite, like, nice grocery store? And they are going to strive off of you needing them. For a narcissist, you are just another trophy for them. And that's something to keep in mind for every type of love bombing. Okay, so this is love bombing type 3. This person is going to be the caretaker. If you haven't caught on already to a possible pattern, the types of love bombings may be associated with types of love languages. And like I said in the beginning of the podcast, if you are someone studying psychology or if you've ever studied psychology, you know that most people are going to have these types of behaviors. It becomes a problem when these behaviors go above and beyond, and you know it's becoming a problem when it's upsetting your life or the people around, the people around who are surrounding you, their lives. So that's something to keep in mind. But the caregiver, this one's actually kind of sad. I mean, they're all pretty upsetting, but this one is especially upsetting because this person is going to take care of you completely. They're going to do everything for you. They're going to be at your beck and call, whatever you want. The sad part about this is that the person who is going to be most likely affected by the caregiver love bomber is someone who just got out of a narcissistic relationship. Why is that, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. The reason people who have just been victims of narcissism get into a second narcissistic relationship is because at the end of a narcissistic relationship, the person who is a narcissist is not doing anything for the victim. They're probably just treating them like garbage, and at that point, they're a part of their cast. They're a part of their people who are they're supporting roles in their life, and they don't care because they already got you. So now you are able to escape from this relationship. You're able to get out of the first narcissistic relationship that you're in. And so you start dating around, and then this person comes into your life that's going to do everything for you. They're going to treat you like royalty. They're just are going to be so nice to you and just give you everything that you need and just do everything for you. That's going to feel so good because the last person that you were with didn't do anything for you. So now, people who are, was in a narcissistic relationship are more likely to get into a second narcissistic relationship, and the cycle begins again. So if you're someone who's in a narcissistic relationship or who has just got out of a narcissistic relationship, this is something to definitely keep your eye out for. Don't let the facade of a narcissist, because they are professionals at this. They're professionals at manipulating you into thinking that there's something they're not. Because you are, if you've just gotten out of a narcissistic relationship, you are at a higher chance of getting into another narcissistic relationship. And you don't want to do that to yourself. I mean, so it's definitely something to be aware of. Oh, man. This one is one of my favorites. If you can call this behavior, one being your favorite, but it seems to be the most interesting, because this one is the inverted hero of love bombing. So the inverted hero, they are going to be the broken and the damaged and the victim of everything. It's going to, and everything has just gone wrong for them. And you are going to be the person who's going to fix them and take care of them and make it all better. And the reason why this is so damaging is because once you get past the victim mentality, you're going to notice that all of their problems have been self-inflicted. And they do that for attention and also to get you within their grasp. This is definitely one, it's kind of the opposite of the one before, where the one before, they were taking care of you. Now you're taking care of them. You're going to fix them. You're going to make them better. I know a lot of people who are named fixers in relationships, and they know that they're doing it. But this is to the extreme, and this is very unhealthy, and they're using it, again, like I said, to get you, essentially. And you're going to see this, by how the person reacts to their problems. They're going to complain about their problems, and they are not going to be the result of their problems. It was everyone else's fault, and the world has treated them so badly, and they have done nothing wrong. You're going to see this with people who play the victim, which is just unhealthy in its own right. But that is a good, surefire way, or a way for you to immediately see a love bomber who you're continually taking care of and trying to make their life better. Also, they're not going to want to do anything to fix their problems, because why fix a problem if they are not the result of their problems? So someone has to admit that they are at fault even a little bit. They have to admit to their problems and try to fix it. If they are not willing to work on their own problems and fix where they're at, but rely on you to take care of them and rely on you to fix them, that is going to be a big red flag for a potential narcissistic love bomber. Okay, so the last type of love bombing, the source that I used, which is the psychologist on TikTok, I believe her @name is What Doesn't Matter, but she calls this spiritual love bombing. But how she explains it is, I believe it could be used in other types of context. So let me explain what spiritual love bombing is. Basically, a person in power, typically someone who is high up in a religious part of whatever religion you're in, they're going to use their position of power as a way to manipulate you. Because if someone is, let's say someone who's high up in a church, like if someone's a pastor, why would they be so bad? Because they wouldn't have gotten there if they weren't a bad person. So they use their power and they use their quote unquote enlightenment to manipulate you into thinking that they are an amazing person. Now, this got me thinking that this could be used by anyone in any sort of power in any social group, not just religion or in the church. So let's say my immediate thought went to politics because with the Me Too movement that's been, has been going on for the last couple of years. Let's say you're working as a campaign worker and the person in charge, who's the campaign manager or even the politician themselves, are using their position of power and your like beliefs, because you both are going to share the same beliefs as you're both working on the same campaign, and use that against you and use it to manipulate you. Because for anybody in any sense of power, it doesn't matter if it's in religion, if it's in politics, if it's at your job. They will use the fact that they have a position of power against you, and to prove that, well, I wouldn't, would you really think I'm such a bad person if I didn't have all of these accolades and I wasn't so, just so powerful and have all these great things happen to me? Am I really such a bad person? Specifically in the spiritual part, they would use the word of God or the word of whatever deity, I guess, you'd use to worship against you and to get, again, you in their grasp. So that is definitely something to look out for anyone who has any sort of power who you think may be love bombing you. So those are all 5 types of love bombing. So that is going to complete this segment. But please stick around because in the next segment, we're going to be talking about love in the news. And there's a funny article about how divorced couples will mess with each other, to say the least. And lastly, we're going to end on 10 ways that you can support your partner while also fighting love bombing. And these things are completely free that you can do, and they're very easy. So we're just going to have a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we're back. So for this section, I wanted to have a little bit of fun. I do like to do, at least some, stuff in the news or something like that. But this one I was scrolling in my little news app on my phone, and, this article from Buzzfeed came across titled, 16 divorce lawyers shared the seriously petty ways couples tried to screw each other, and it's bad, y'all. That is the full title. We love a good BuzzFeed title. So I am actually going to read this for the first time on the podcast and just react to some of the different ones. So the first one is, in quotations, "Our office worked on a messy divorce in which the parties were required to split up some antique pots." First of all, who fights over antique pots? I mean, maybe if they're like really old or like, I don't know. But anyway, well, when the husband delivered the wife's share of the pots to our office, he had taken an expletive in each one. So he had taken a poop in every single pot. Yikes. You know what? If your ex wants all of your pots, and you know what, you believe that you deserve custody of those pots, relieving yourself in one of them is definitely a way to do that, to get back at them. So yeah, you know what? I give him an A for creativity, for sure. So the second one is, during my first year of law school, a divorce lawyer told us about a well-to-do couple that spent months and months and tens of thousands of dollars fighting over every single thing, all the way down to a single ceramic ashtray. even after they decided on everything else, they spent an additional $100,000 fighting over the ashtray. How? I just wish I was at the point where I cared that much and I had that much money. We're spending $100,000 over an ashtray. Like, man, how well off do you have to be to like, yep, I'm going to spend $100,000 on an ashtray. Like, babe, go to Salvo's and get you a new ashtray. Okay? Like, I bet it's not even that cute of an ashtray. Is it even going to go into your new home's interior? Because you guys aren't going to be living together anymore, and you have to keep this in mind. If it's not going to match, why are you fighting over it? But, you know, whatever. I wish I had that kind of money where I could worry about that. Number 3, the couple wanted everything split right down the middle, right down to the block of cheese in the fridge. Now, man, you know what? I guess like when you get married, like they say, oh, what's yours is mine. And then when you get divorced, maybe it's, what's yours was mine is now going to be split completely down the middle. Why you would need a lawyer to make that block of cheese, legally yours, or at least half of it, go ahead. But man, like, at least where I'm from, we have this store called Aldi, and tell you what, it's pretty great, and you can get a cheap block of cheese. All I'm saying is just why. Okay, number 4. The couple was divorcing on mutual terms, and the wife had 1 child with this husband and 1 from her previous marriage. Well, the husband agreed to pay child support for both children, even though he wasn't obligated to. I'm going to read on. The judge signed the order. They set up the child support account, and it got kicked back, saying that they couldn't have 2 accounts for the same child. Well, it turns out the wife had been collecting child support from the biological father the entire time they were married, and she never told her husband! So they basically tried to milk 2 fathers for 1 child. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm so happy I continued to read on that one. That is hilarious. Dang, girl. You know, yikes. I guess if you can outsmart the system, go ahead. And this time it did not work in her favor, but I wonder if she got any repercussions for that. Like, the people were like, we got on. You can't do that. Oh, that's great. Anyway, number 5, the husband gave his wife 5 of his 9 companies. The ones that owed 7 figures in payroll taxes. He had made her the bookkeeper on paper, and she spent decades trying to shake the IRS for the results. Ouch, man. Oh, man. I mean, on paper it sounds good. Like, oh yeah, you know, I gave her 5 of my 9 companies, blah, 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 blah. But, you know, as business is business, I guess. Oh boy. Okay. Number 6, I read about a top executive at a Fortune 500 company who was caught in a nasty divorce. He was set up for life with a bunch of stock, houses, and assets in many places, and the wife wanted everything she could possibly get. Well, the husband proposed that if his wife let him keep everything, he'd give her half of his paycheck for the rest of his life. She quickly agreed because his checks were huge, and he received millions of dollars in bonuses. Well, as soon as the paperwork was finalized, he quit his job and started to work part-time at a sporting goods store. He would still drive to work in his expensive car and was still set for life. But every Friday, he loved knowing that his ex-wife would only be getting about $150 per check. Now, this kind of confuses me. I'm sorry if you hear dogs in the background, by the way. I have a window open, and believe it or not, these dogs are about 100 yards away from me, so their voices are really carrying, if you can hear it. Anyway, that kind of confuses me. So I imagine he was still living off of his stocks and assets. So good for him because I'm sure if he decided to work at a sporting goods store, he probably did it because he likes, sports and being an outdoorsy kind of guy. So I can get that. But I don't know if I'd want to, I mean, that is kind of funny though. But I guess the moral of the story is so far, we're only about halfway through, is that if you are extremely rich, you should probably sign a prenup. Number 7, my parents got divorced and my mom didn't want my dad to show up in court and contest. So she called me and told me to put laxatives in his food so he wouldn't make it. I didn't, and she still hates me for it. Oh man, this is actually really bad, okay? Like, as a child of a divorced parents, if you're a child who's going through a divorce, or if you're a child who did go through a divorce, the worst thing that a parent can do is pit you against the other parent. Like, I actually feel really bad for this person, or at least the child that, their mom asked them to put laxatives in their dad's thing. Yikes. Number 8. I was an assistant at a family law practice, and in one divorce case we had, the wife had started dating someone new who was severely allergic to cats. Well, her ex-husband bought a cat for their kids, knowing that he wasn't allowed to have pets in his apartment, so that his ex-wife would have to keep it at her house. The wife called us saying that the kids were distraught, she didn't want to keep it, and that her ex-husband told the kids that if their mom loved them, she would keep the cat. Oh man, these are getting kind of bad. Oh, I don't like that. Because, you don't want the kids to, you know what? I don't really like that one. I think my favorite so far is about the lady who's trying to scam, the two guys. But, that's actually really wrong. You should never, the parents should, if you're going through a divorce and you have kids, please do not do this. Don't pit your kids against the other person, because they're not going to like you for it. They're going to resent you for it. And it's the worst thing you can do. You just got to grin and bear it in front of the kids and, get on a group chat with your girls and complain about, your jerk of a ex-husband or ex-wife or whomever. But don't get your kids involved. This is so bad. Okay, 9. My cousin's ex-wife wanted half of the house in their divorce, as in she literally tried to get half of the house demolished just to spite my cousin. Why? How is this helping anyone? I get, these are supposed to be petty, but man, you're just, I don't know. I would have, if you have a house together, you guys have put you and your partner has put financial, work into the house. You probably have a mortgage, or you've paid to fix the place up. Why would you just want to destroy it? Even if your ex-husband is a jerk. I guess maybe it's because I've never had a husband and therefore, or, a wife or anything, or therefore has never, been in a divorce. But I just don't understand. Okay. Number 10, I work for a divorce attorney, and the craziest divorce I saw was when the husband, who had left the home, returned while the wife was at work to not only remove his clothing and belongings, but to gorilla glue her things together. He glued the TV remote to the table, the phone to its cradle, the couch pillows to the couch, and even glued the vacuum cleaner to the carpet. She called the police to report property damage, and for days afterward, she continued discussing random things discovering random things glued together. Including her oven mitts, which were glued to the wall, and all of her sheets in the linen closet, which were glued together. Oh, that one might be my new favorite. You know what? In this case, these things can be replaced. Your relationship with your child cannot be replaced. So if you're gonna get back and be petty at your ex, do a little college prank. I don't really have a problem with this. I mean, I would definitely have a problem if it was my stuff, but the sheets, you can go to TJ Maxx and get a new sheet. Again, A for creativity. 11. I once had a boss whose wife grabbed all the belongings from the house she felt entitled to while her husband was gone. When he returned, every knob and handle was gone too. Doorknobs, cabinet handles, drawer handles, anything used to open something. And every day for the next week, he would occasionally yell out, "She took the effing knobs." But who heard this though? What I imagine is, a neighbor like sitting on the front porch, and then you just hear, "He took the effing knobs!" like come out of nowhere, and and then like, your kid comes in and he's like, "Dad, what was that?" I go, "Oh no, it's Jerry. His wife divorced him and she took all the knobs apparently." Like that's what I picture. 12. I represented a guy who was on his second marriage. His first wife had passed away from cancer. Well, while divorcing his second wife, he met a very kind, affectionate woman. They hit it off and they became basically engaged. Well, the fiancé was later diagnosed with terminal cancer. Oh no. And when the wife found out, she accused him in court of killing his first wife by giving her cancer and trying to do the same thing to his fiancée. I wish I had an artist rendering of the scene capturing the crazy look in the wife's eyes, her attorney's look of shame and embarrassment, and the judge's look of plain confusion. Oh, baby girl, no, you're just embarrassing yourself. Oh, that's terrible. Can you imagine the guy who lost his first life, presumably, I hope, the love of his life, to a terminal illness, then having a divorce, and then finally thinking that, your life is coming together and your fiance gets cancer. And then your freaking ex-wife comes in and she's like, "Oh, well, he's giving all these people cancer." Like, what? Oh, that's terrible. This poor guy. Okay, 13. I worked on a divorce in which the wife waited for her husband to leave the house on a business trip, then came to the house, turned on all the faucets, plugged the drains, turned off the furnace, and left. It was -10 degrees. When the husband came back 5 days later, the house was ruined and the water froze and cracked the foundation. Oh my God. Damn. She went hard. I would like to know why they got divorced. Because I feel like someone just doesn't do that if they didn't get done really, really dirty. There must have been several mistresses involved in that one. Yikes. And I bet she got sued for a lot of money, like damage to the foundation. Like, oh my God, that's nuts. Okay. 14. In the first divorce case I'd ever worked on, great first one. Way to start off nice. The husband waxed every single hair off his body to avoid a court-mandated drug test. What? Is they really? I mean, because, like, think about it. There's gonna be hair in places that you're gonna have to get waxed, especially a guy. Like, you're gonna have to get your butthole waxed. Just, like, right up in there. Oh, man. That is dedication. I give him credit, kudos, just for being that into it. He worked hard. All right. 15. I worked in family courts when I was first starting out, and the most memorable case I saw was when my wife literally took everything from the house. She even ripped out the carpets. Okay, so, this one isn't as crazy as compared to, like, splitting the block of cheese in half. So I'm actually not as surprised with this one, but still very petty. Very petty. And this is the last one. So 16. I read about a divorce whose settlement included the shared custody of a parrot. Oh, I love birds. Neither party was allowed to teach the parrot to swear at the other one. That was put in the freaking document. Oh my God. Polly the parrot will not be allowed to swear at my client as per our agreement. Oh my God, that's amazing. Well, you'll have to let me know either on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook what your favorite story is. I think my favorite story might have been the glue one. Where the guy glued all of the stuff together. But anyway, let me know. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to get into 10 free ways that you can just be nice to your significant other, but also not love bombing, because we're going to go back to love bombing a little bit, because we talked about some of the ways that, showing your significant other a little bit too much attention too quickly can be unhealthy, but these are some healthy examples of doing that. Anyway, stay tuned.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
All right, so you may have been wondering, you know what? We talked about all these ways that people love bomb, but what are some healthy ways to show your partner affection while not love bombing? So here are some ways. These are 10 ways. They're all ways that are completely free too. So the first one is always going to be just be there for your partner. But you need to remember to also give them space. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. A big tug where you just squeeze them is sometimes the best thing that you can do, especially if your partner is overwhelmed, if they're upset. Just give them a big hug, give them that physical contact. There's actually been a study that humans need, I think, like 13, oh God, I don't know. It's at least 10 hugs a day to feel like we need physical contact. So if you're giving your partner physical contact, just by doing that is going to show that you care and that you're there for them, even if you don't say anything at all. The second one is going to be cook dinner or do a chore without asking. This is going to be, it's just a good act of kindness. If you cook their favorite dinner or, especially now, obviously this doesn't have to be when when your partner is very busy or very stressed out. Like, even if you just, they are definitely don't get me wrong, they're definitely going to appreciate it, especially if they're stressed out or if they have a lot on their plate. But if you just do something for your partner without being asked and not expecting anything from them, that's a great way to show your partner that you care and that you're there for them. But I know some people, though, they, for example, I used cook dinner as an example. Some people use cooking dinner as their alone time and as their time. I wouldn't recommend, you would know your partner best, so I wouldn't recommend taking away time for themselves that they like and enjoy. But, even if it's just like folding the laundry, without being asked and something that they would normally do, and just sneak in there and do it for them. 3, this is really easy. Leave a surprise note for them. This could be done many different ways. So let's say you usually wake up and go to work before your partner does. Leave a note for them in the kitchen or like by the coffee maker or somewhere that they're going to see it. Or maybe you're the one who meal preps and maybe you're packing their lunch, and leave a cute little note just like in elementary school in their lunchbox. Like, that's super cute. Or maybe just leave a note on their windshield. This may scare them at first because they might think it's a parking ticket, but imagine how relieved they're going to feel when they see it's a note from their favorite person. Number 4, show interests in their interest. but you don't have to love their interests. So, you know what? Listen, my boyfriend, he plays video games. I don't know anything about video games. I cannot use both controllers at the same time, but I'm still going to ask him about like what game he's playing and, you know, try to watch. There's some times where I can only watch for so long, until I'm like, okay, I can't do this anymore. But, I'm still going to ask him like how he's doing and if he's liking the games. So I don't have to like video games, but I can be interested in his interests. And so can you be. It's totally normal and okay if you have different interests than your partner. You are both two separate people. You're not supposed to have exactly the same interests. And especially when it comes to food, I've always said this, that it's good to have a partner who likes different food than you do, because then they can eat the food that you don't eat. So like I hate spicy food and my boyfriend does. So if something is too spicy for me, I can just give it to him. Yeah, moving on. Run an errand for them. This is just great. Like if they're trying to plan out their day and they're like, okay, I got to go to the bank and then, you know, I have to go pick this thing up and I have to go to the grocery store. Maybe just like, if you have time in your day, like, oh, well, you know, I'm going to drive right by the bank when I have to do this thing. Maybe I can just go to the bank so you don't have to. Like, just helping out and just being, you know, a decent human person. These are all good examples of showing your partner you care without love bombing them. Also, if you're worried that you are a love bomber, just know that all of these things, if someone is a love bomber, typically they're narcissistic. And if you're worried about if you're narcissistic, that's a pretty good sign that you're not narcissistic. And love bombing is going to happen mostly right in the beginning of the relationship. But these are things that you can do at any point in the relationship, as long as you're able to give your person space when they need space. Number 6, explore your own problems and see a counselor or a therapist. This can be tricky because therapy is not always free. Now, if you have insurance, there are very good ways to find a psychologist or a counselor who may accept your insurance. Not everyone has insurance because that's the country that we live in, unfortunately. For example, like I have Medicaid, and the last counselor and psychiatrist I saw, I went to a clinic, and it was completely paid for by my insurance. So even if you have an insurance that you don't think is typically good, definitely look into that. Also, another bit of advice that I give to everyone is don't be afraid to ask a counselor or a therapist's office if they have sliding scale pay options. What a sliding scale is basically, you'll usually have like a meeting with someone and, you can discuss, your financials and you can basically say like, this is what I can afford. And they can say whether or not you can do that. And then, if you get to a point at your life where you can afford their fee, then, you can go from there. But a lot of people do have sliding scale stuff. And, I think, like I said in the last episode, there's also online, therapy options, like BetterHelp and Talkspace. I have used Talkspace. I haven't used BetterHelp, but Talkspace's financial department was really helpful if I needed financial help. And they usually have coupons where you can get like the first month like half off or something like that. But that's a long explanation, but this is basically just to say that if you can explore your own issues, you are not going to be putting it on your partner to solve for you. And you know what? Counseling is for everybody. I recommend it for everyone. You don't have to be quote unquote crazy. Okay. Like regular people go to counseling. You do not have to have a mental diagnosis to seek counseling. You can just be a regular person, who wants someone who is literally getting paid to listen to you complain. I mean, I don't know about you, but that's my dream. And that's why I love counseling. I have an hour set aside each week where I know this person is going to listen to whatever I say, and it's great. All right. So number 7, just be a listener. You don't have to go into fix-it mode all the time. Sometimes your significant other may just need to vent, and that's okay. You don't have to fix things. You can just be like, you know what? Yeah, Karen is super dumb. I don't know why she does that all the time. You know, just like try to validate their feelings a little bit, and you don't have to fix everything all the time. But you know your significant other best, and so you can kind of read the situation and see what kind of support they need. But do keep in mind that sometimes somebody just wants to vent and get the emotions off their chest and then move on with their lives. And it doesn't necessarily need to be fixed right away. Okay, so number 8, spend quality time. The important thing about this is that you put the phones away. This is really important for just to have that basic communication and to know that your partner is caring about you and isn't distracted by the million other things that are going on in our lives. Now that we all have phones, we're constantly interconnected. Our work is asking a lot more of us. Our schooling is asking a lot more of us because we are constantly plugged in. By taking even 30 minutes or an hour with your partner, or just you and your partner, and you can go for a walk, you can take, the dog out and just be in the moment with you and your partner, and that's going to be really great for the both of you. Number 9, give sincere compliments. So one thing with love bombing is like the constant, like, oh my God, you're a goddess, or you're a god, and you're just so amazing. Obviously it's good to give compliments. But like, what really means a lot is just the way you look at your partner and, sincerely compliment them. And it doesn't always have to be about their looks. It can be, you're so smart, you're so creative, you're so independent, you're so, you can just get so much done, like that kind of thing. So it doesn't always have to be about looks. It can be about, how good they are at doing what they do. Okay. And the last one is understand you and your partner's love language and that it may be different. I know in a previous episode, love language was covered. So I'm not going to go into the types of love languages and what it is and all that stuff. But, a good way is to figure out not only what your love language is, but how you give love. How you give love and how you would like to receive love can be different. And you and your partner are probably going to have different types of love languages. And if you understand how your partner likes to give and receive a type of love language, that is going to make your partner more satisfied with the relationship, emotionally at least. There's actually a quiz online that you can take. I think it's just like 5lovelanguages.com. If you just Google like, what's my love languages? What is my love language? You can just take a quiz and it tells you right there, it breaks you down, what is the one that you like the best and how many points you got on each one. So I've actually taken that a few times just because, that can also change over time depending on your needs and where you're at in life and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting insight, and just understand that, if you're constantly buying your partner gifts, but they'd rather have physical touch, they're not you're going to think that you are going to be showing a lot of love and affection, but your partner may not see that, because they would rather have, quality time or physical touch or words of affirmation, something different from what you're giving them. And if you can recognize that and address that, I feel like there's probably going to be a lot less fights in your relationship, and it's going to be better for both of you guys. But that is going to conclude the podcast. I want to thank you so much for listening. I hope that I shared this to my Facebook, and it seemed to get a lot of good reviews on Facebook, at least from the Pride podcast. I did realize that I said the GSMC sex podcast. Please don't be confused. This is the relationship podcast. auditioned for the sex podcast originally, so I think I got a little confused in my script giving. Also, I did want to give an update that in my last episode I talked about transgender rights. The Supreme Court has actually overruled that, and now gender identity is once again included in the sex portion of basically it's illegal to discriminate against if you are a trans person. So that is fantastic to hear. Especially given everything I covered in the last episode. If you haven't seen that, please download and leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. That is going to help boost the podcast. Please also share this podcast if you like it, especially if you think you or someone in your life is being love bombed. Just because I had no idea what love bombing was until recently. I feel like now it's getting a little bit more traction. But yeah, I had no idea what love bombing was until like a few months ago. So, definitely please share and get the word out there. Also you can give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook, but if you, want to interact with me on Twitter, I do have the app on my phone. I'm not a Twitter person, so I hopefully I'll see it. But, yeah, you can always, DM me or mention me in something or, yeah. But yeah, let me know what was your favorite story from, the divorcee people. And, yeah, so thank you for listening to the GSMC relationship podcast, not the sex podcast. And so yeah, give us a follow and a review. Thank you all and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.